Good morning and good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. It's great to have you with us, and welcome to episode 3 for delivering MQLs to the sales team. So this is the last episode in our lead nurturing series of webinars. So thanks again for making some time. We appreciate you being here. Let me just recap on housekeeping. As you know, we use Zoom to record our webinars, and you can access those replays on the Marketing Cube blog at any point. We'll obviously send you an email as well with details. Feel free to ask questions throughout the Q&A. We've got members of the team on the line to answer those questions if I miss them, so please go ahead and use the Q&A. If you wanted to ask a question that not everybody else can see, feel free to use the chat function in order to do that. And again, the team can answer those for you. So my name is Derek Bell. I'm your host for today, and I'm excited to share with you a number of assets and ideas and thoughts around lead scoring and passing those MQLs over to the sales team. I'm joined by Adrian, our CEO and founder, and also Sean Camella, one of our account directors. So thanks, guys. They're manning the Q&A and chat function, so make sure you keep them busy. You've probably noticed over the last I think we started earlier this year, encouraging questions. And it's fair to say we haven't been inundated with questions, but I can't imagine that everyone's out there with no questions. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here on the webinar. So thanks for being here, obviously. But if you do have questions, please make sure you submit those questions as we look towards the last 3 months or last 3 episodes of the user group for this year. We want to make sure we tailor that around what you're interested in and what's kind of pressing for you. And the only way we know that is if you tell us. So if you want to use the question function to do that, you'll notice you get that there's a link to the same page in most of the communications we send you. The confirmation page has a link on it taking you straight to the ask a question or submit a question page as well. So please feel free to use that. Scan the QR code or go back to relevant emails that we sent, and you'll have the same link there as well. So what's on the agenda for today? So I just wanted to do a quick recap and put some context around the first 2 episodes. We'll then dive into lead scoring, a little around page tagging, and explain why we're including page tagging in this scenario. And all of that kind of feeds into the concept of sales and marketing alignment. We'll also then look at release 23C, which for some of you, you're live on at the moment. And of course, Q&A. But as I said, Q&A really is throughout the entire session. So please don't hold off on those questions. All right, first thing, let's jump back and have a look at episodes 1 and 2. There may be some people on the line today who weren't able to join us for episodes 1 or 2 or both, perhaps. So I just want to give you a little bit of a recap of what we did. So the first episode was really around who is your buyer and helping us understand how we can develop an ideal client profile. So understand who our real key target is. And then looking at how digital body language can really help you. Well, here we say augment the market research, looking at demographics, psychographics, and firmographics. All of this information is covered in our blog as well, so please feel free to have a look at that. And then also looking at personas and the value of personas in helping you shape the different types of content you're developing, but also to deliver more tailored experiences to people. So if we understand a little bit about the person, well, then we can start to shape the experience to more tailor to that individual and what their objectives are in the scheme of things. We also touched on lead scoring in episode 1 as well, which we're diving into in more detail today. So the next step was to then nurture those buyers. And so from there, we looked at really trying to understand and define a campaign objective really early. So don't just feel like you need to nurture anybody with a heartbeat necessarily. We want to go back to episode 1, understand who our buyer is so that we can build a more relevant campaign and a more tailored campaign as you nurture people through which could eventually potentially be multiple nurture streams based on different products or services that you might offer. So the ideal client profile really helps then to build the audience, or it's vice versa, or it's the other way around, where you're going through a process and you're asking questions and hoping that as you get the relevant responses, that you're then refining that down to an ideal client based on the profile that you've developed. Now, information we determine can come into the platform in a range of ways. It can be through an individual responding to questions on a form. It could be through, for instance, data coming from the CRM platform. So as the sales team and service team are interacting with a potential buyer, they're gathering information in that process. And hopefully there's a facility and an easy way for them to update information within the CRM platform, which can then be brought into Eloqua to help you to tailor and target your messaging in a lot more detail, drive dynamic content, those sorts of things. So the idea was, or the overarching comment there was, to really put the buyer at the heart of the campaign objective and consider their experience at each step of the journey. So there's a few things you need to do there. You need to have personas, you need to understand the buyer's journey, and really understand the pain points of those relevant individuals so that your nurturing campaign can hopefully resonate with that particular person. And so here we are today with delivering MQLs to sales, good old marketing qualified leads. All right, let's jump in. I did get one question submitted from Dragos in Romania, who's a solution engineer for the software company. And he asked the question, can you please help me understand how you link a lead scoring model to a certain campaign? Or is the lead score model independent from an active campaign? And so the answer to the second question is, well, yes, it kind of is, but you can, in fact, create a lead score model to target a particular campaign if you want to. We have a client in the event business. And so for them, every event that they run, and these are big events, we're talking thousands of people sort of at exhibition centers and those sorts of things, they actually build lead score models for each event. So probably not down to a campaign level, as in an Eloqua campaign level, but all comms, all campaigns within Eloqua that are designed to drive people to a particular event are all rolled into a single lead score model. So you absolutely can do that. It's not the most common use of lead scoring, but it's certainly, as I said, we have one client that's exactly what they do with their lead score model. And one of the key reasons they wanted Eloqua, because that's what they could do. That was really important to them to be able to understand that, especially in the context of an individual with multiple events, for example. So very helpful tip. We'll explore a little bit more about that particular point later on this morning as well. Okay, so let's get right into it. Let's dive straight into how do I get my leads, my marketing qualified leads from Eloqua to the sales team. And of course, it won't surprise you to know that there are multiple ways that you can do that, but let's focus on some clear ones. So first thing, a recap. What is lead scoring? For those of you who may not be overly familiar with the lead scoring concept within Eloqua, let's have a closer look. So at the end of the day, lead scoring really is an objective ranking. It's looking at one sales lead compared to another sales lead and ranking it based on a range of criteria that you determine. And you determine that in consultation with the sales team. So you work together to build out that particular lead score model. The whole point there is the collaboration part of the exercise. For instance, we run a range of different workshops for clients, one of which is a lead scoring workshop. And our general direction to the client is always, if we don't have sales in the room, there's really no point in running the workshop. So let's get sales in the room. Let's get their input. So then there's buy-in in relation to the process. So when we arrive at an end result and we build a lead score model, sales actually have some skin in the game. Now, depending on your organization, it may well be that people from the service team should also be included in that particular workshop as well. If you want to talk further about any of those, you can reach out to any member of the marketing cube team, and we'd be more than happy to have that chat with you. But the key thing there is a clear definition of a good lead is what will make the difference. And if you can arrive at that collaboratively with those who are receiving the leads, typically the sales team, then we can get them doing what they need to do, talking to the right people at the right time, based on information that you've been able to put together based on your lead score model. So managing the handover, when do you send a lead to sales? That's the critical question, right? One of the most popular notions is that when a lead reaches an agreed lead score, for example, it might be A12, B12, something like that, That could be what you determine to be a marketing qualified lead. And the key message there is that you determine what a marketing qualified lead is. It may, in fact, just be A1. That's it. That's all that goes over to sales. Or you may choose to do something like I've got on the screen there. But there can be other triggers that will send a lead directly through to sales. And it may be completely independent of the lead score model. So if someone submits a form asking for assistance, but they're only scoring a B4, well, you're not going to wait to send that through to sales or to the service team. You're going to send it through immediately. And so that's absolutely another criteria to send one through. Now, when they download a specific piece of high value content, again, you may choose to do that independent of the lead score model. The lead score model will provide a lead score, which could be helpful in the context of that particular individual. But perhaps that particular piece of high value content is one where you want that going straight through to the keeper, where somebody should potentially be reaching out to that individual to ask them a little bit more about what is they're interested in, anything else you can do to help, or so on and so forth. Now, the worst criteria for sending a lead through to sales is because the person has a heartbeat. Okay, so let's avoid that one to start with. What about in-person events? And it might depend. If it's a trade show, maybe not. But if it's a really targeted type of an event, maybe you absolutely want to ensure that there's follow-up after that event by the sales team for anyone who attended that particular event. So again, you may control the flow separate to your lead score model. So there are different ways that you can do that. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that the handover experience from marketing to sales, it's not a binary exercise. It's not if they do this, they get that. There can be a whole range of things that they may do that qualify them to be sent over to the sales team for follow-up. Okay. So actual managing the handover, and how do you do that in Eloqua? So we talked about the lead score reaching an MQL status. So again, you define what a marketing qualified lead is. In the example I provided you there, we looked at a score of A1, A2, B1, or B2 as being a marketing qualified lead. And so what happens with that one? Well, we can use the program canvas to listen for lead score changes. So the program canvas has a listen function, and that listen function will enable it to listen for changes in the lead score. And once it reaches the threshold again that you determine, you can then use the program canvas to push that particular lead into the sales or into the CRM platform. What about when they submit a form asking for assistance? That was the other one. So if they're submitting a form, there is a form processing step that you can use potentially with the program canvas that will then drive that person through to the CRM. If they download a piece of high value content, how do we do that? Well, actually, it's the same. So again, it's form processing step along with program canvas. And finally, attended an in-person event. There are probably a range of ways you could do it, but if it was me, I would use a form processing step and program canvas to do that, depending on the way you structure your campaign. But in essence, it's the form processing step and the program canvas, primarily the program canvas, that will actually push those leads through to sales. Now, from the campaign canvas as well, you can apply and push people into programs from the campaign canvas. So if there are certain things that people do, maybe it's post-event comms, whatever the campaign structure is, if you wanted to, and you could use different filter criteria to determine it, you could also use the campaign canvas to push that particular person onto the program canvas. And that particular program is designed to then push that individual into the CRM platform as a lead. Now, the program canvas is pretty smart as well in relation to the way that it talks to the CRM. So it can identify to begin with if the person is already a contact, and if they're a contact, we'll just update the contact. However, if they're not a contact and they're not a lead in the CRM platform, well, it can create the lead. It's quite flexible and quite powerful in the way that it moves things around for you in order to get that information directly in front of the sales team. And that process, for example, a net new individual completely unknown to your organization can arrive at your website. They may fill in a form on the website. That particular form has a program canvas element to it. That person, from submitting the form to being in the CRM platform, can literally happen within sort of 5 or so minutes. So it's not as though the sales team will be waiting overnight for batch runs and those sorts of things to happen. It's essentially an instantaneous process. So that's good news. So what I wanted to show you here was just an example of a particular form and what that program looks like, and just to show you how simple it is. Now, when I say simple, there's a little bit of work that needs to be done in the background, obviously by the support team, whoever's setting up your system. Let's have a look. So I'm going to use this is actually the form that you use to register for today's webinar, for example. And what I want to show you is the program. So here's the form, as you can see. Then the processing steps up here in the top right-hand corner. And there's a whole bunch of processing steps in play in this one. And in fact, in this one, we have two programs that are running. But this first program specifically is the program that pushes people into the CRM. And so you can see what we're doing here. We're checking to see, are they a contact, are they a lead, etc., and then doing different things as they move through. But you can see the total sources. I have 193 sources pointing at this particular program within Eloqua. And so it's 193 ways that I'm at the moment structuring the flow of individuals from Eloqua directly into the CRM platform. And it'll drive, as I said, it'll either create the lead, update the lead, or update a contact as well. So a range of options there for you to do that. A little while ago, Adrian, our CEO, crafted a blog post that he titled 5 Steps to Avoid Missed Opportunities with Lead Scoring. And it's a good read, and I'll make sure that you get a link to this. It's on our blog. You can find it if you just use keywords of lead scoring, you'll find the blog post. The first one, and I think the really important part of the exercise, is to define a single objective for the lead score. Emphasis there on define the single, okay? You have the ability to create multiple lead score models within Eloqua. But if you try and create a lead score model that is everything to everyone, then you'll just end up in a mess. It just doesn't work. So what you want to do is be really specific and define a single objective for your particular lead score. Tip number 2 is get your stakeholders together and get them together early, okay? So you want that buy-in. It sort of goes back to that point I raised a little while ago in relation to making sure the sales team are involved in the workshops that we deliver, for example, that we just find if you don't have the sales team involved and you don't have them involved early, it just, you still end up with that same scenario with sales saying, oh, these leads are terrible. The leads aren't qualified. The person doesn't even want to buy anything. All of those sorts of comments that you can get from sales, get them involved early so there's buy-in. Okay. Now, this is very much an Eloqua speak. So agree and weight your profile attributes. So the profile attributes are really important. We'll explore these in a bit more detail here shortly, but the weighting of those is also really important. Really basic example. Let's say the primary focus of your business is within Asia Pac. And so what you can do is place a higher weighting on countries that are of greater value to you as an organization. So if your business is very much focused within Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam, then what we can do is actually weight those countries slightly higher than should somebody tell you maybe they're from China or Japan or where did I miss? Indonesia, for instance. And so it's a scale, essentially. So you can apply some mathematics to the responses that people give you. We call these weightings, okay? Usually from 5% through to 100% in 5% increments as you go up. The next part is to do the same thing, same weighting concept, but now with engagement attributes. Looking at people's engagement with campaigns, with form submissions, website activity, those sorts of things. Agree, again, as a team, what they are, and get those together. And then finally, the last step, of course, is to build your model. And this is the fun part, really. Now, of course, there are a few ways you can go about doing that. Of course, the one way that I would encourage you to do is to get Marketing Cube to help. So again, if you would like a hand with any of these sort of things, obviously, please feel free to reach out to us. And we've done this for many clients over the years. And the great thing is, once it's up and running, then there's the refining process that kind of comes in. And before too long, then they start to realize, wow, if we could actually create a separate model, we could potentially, so then it just starts to go. And you have a lot of fun, and it becomes a really valuable tool to help get sales and marketing speaking together in relation to a single core objective. Okay, so I want to throw that QR code back up on the screen for you just as a reminder. So if you do have your phone there, just go ahead and scan that. It's a simple form, and you can fill in any questions that you might have based on anything that we've presented so far today. Okay, so now what I want to do is show you some ways to look at enhancing your lead score. You do have this mountain of information available to you within Eloqua that provides you an incredible amount of insight. And lead scoring is a great way to try and bring all of that together and place value and weightings. Now, you know what weightings are on different activities that a person may perform. So, what impacts a lead score? Well, there are two key areas. As I said, it's profile. And these are just some examples. I mean, when you open the Eloqua contact, every single field that you see is part of the profile. And so all of those things can contribute to your lead score in relation to importance and so on and so forth. The engagement data is the other critical piece of the exercise, and that can be a whole range of things. It's website activity, it's email, landing page engagement, form submissions, also shared contact lists as well, and even custom data objects. So if you've got information sitting in custom data objects, then that can be a really good thing. If you think through, some of the clients just looking, some of the clients who are with us today have On24, for example, as a webinar platform. And so On24 does a really good job of being able to capture information throughout the webinar, both through little mini surveys they can present through the whole process, but also looking at what people are downloading and accessing while they're watching the webinar. So you can be watching the webinar, and then over here on the right-hand side, they might have 2 or 3 PDFs that you can just simply click on and download. Now, of course, you're logged in. They know who you are. When you click on it, that behavior is linked to you. And so all of that behavior and that information can flow beautifully back into Eloqua, which can be stored in a range of locations. Initially, it's stored in a custom object. You can choose to do what you want with it from there. But even with it sitting right there in the custom object, you can use your lead score model to reference some of that information as well. So it could be the fact that they attended a webinar recently. It could be that it was a particular subject matter of the webinar that would contribute to the lead score model. There's a whole range of, you're really limited by your imagination at the end of the day. So profile and engagement data come together, and essentially that's how we then produce our lead score model as we combine the two. And so this is one of the key differentiators as you look at lead score models across different types of platforms. It's the co-dynamic construct of Eloqua's lead score model, the co-dynamic being profile and engagement data. And the other thing is to understand that the score that is assigned is not a score, it's not a cumulative. So a person doesn't start at 0 with a goal to get to 100. And if they submit a form, they get 10 points. If they open an email, they get 2 points. If they click on an email, they might get 5 points. And then it kind of accumulates up and up and up. The problem with that model is someone may have done all of those things. They may be at 95 points out of 100, but they haven't done anything for 12 months. So the recency is lost, is a big thing. And so the co-dynamic construct of building together scoring for both profile and engagement brings those two things together. And the underlying level, which is probably not really visually represented here that well, is the recency concept. So not only did they visit the website, but they visited it within the last week or the last 24 hours or the last 3 months. And depending on that level of recency, again, you can weight that behavior higher or lower. So it becomes a very tailored and very specific lead score model that you're able to generate and build. So what does that look like within Eloqua? So here's a shot of the profile screen. And so down the left-hand side, you can see a whole swag of fields. It would look very much the same for you. In the middle of the screen, what you can see are the 4 particular values that we've elected to use, which is country, does the person have a current Eloqua license, their job category, and also their account type. And so you can see the sliding scale from left to right is the value that we place on those, and then the overall weighting on the far right-hand side as well. Now you'll notice up in the top right-hand corner of that page, you've got the ability to access other parts of Eloqua. So not just contact fields, but count fields, shared contact lists, and again, as I said to you earlier, custom data objects. Now, if we flip over to the engagement side of things, you can see this gets a little bit busier now. And here on the left-hand side, again, you can see all the different options you've got available to you. And then down the center of the screen, same concept, different behaviors, sliding scales, and overall weightings listed on the far right-hand side. And again, you've got standard activities that are available, but you've also got information. Again, you can still bring in information from contacts, accounts, shared contacts, and again, custom objects. So you've got a lot of data to play with to really help you tailor and build out what it is you're trying to do. So what I want to show you as well is the Eloqua dashboard. Okay, so you may, if you've got an active lead score model in place, then you may well have spent some time looking at the dashboards. So here's one of those dashboards. And let me change that to this one. So you can see there's a range of active models there. So I'm just changing it to one that is a bit more relevant for our discussion. And so what this will show you, it's broken down into sort of three sections. First one is looking at the lead score categories of whether, so this is Eloqua taking all of the information and telling you, are they most qualified, qualified, somewhat qualified, or least qualified? Then breaking out the two, profile and engagement. So engagement here might be low, but you can see, well, I'll explain this here in a minute. And then at the bottom, you've got the actual dashboard itself. And so the numbers that you see, if I zoom in there, the numbers that you see are indicative of 41 people. So 41 people, 35 people, 82 people. Now, the other key thing to understand is that the lead score model is scoring every single contact in the database. And so that's why sometimes when you look at these, you think, oh, that doesn't really look that flash. But when you actually hover over it, you start to get a little bit more detail. So even over here, for instance, you might think, oh, the engagement's very low. Oh, okay. Well, there's 154 people there, actually. 167 people there. Now, this will all be relative based on the size of your database. So, and this is fairly common, by the way, on the engagement side, to see a really big number here and then a sort of more reduced as you come across, because the threshold to be a 1 from an engagement obviously is much higher. But yeah, don't be deceived. Just take a moment to hover over that and you'll see an actual value. But yeah, so this is the fun part down here, really. So this is the concept of the A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. So engagement across the top, profile down the left, and that concept of an A12, B12. So that is what we call the top left-hand quadrant of the lead score model. And again, for the marketing cube, that's what we determine as a marketing qualified lead. So you can see there's that little number right there. And then down the bottom, of course, is the entire database down the right-hand side. So our goal as marketers, generally speaking, is to build people from that sort of D4 scenario and progress them further up to the top of the line. Now, obviously, some people will fall out of the process because they're, absolutely not the right profile, or there's a zero engagement, etc. And we can access, all of this information through segments. As we're building segments, we can use the lead score model to target these people and to help progress them a little bit further. And in some cases, maybe even exclude them as well. All right, so let's have a look at page tagging. And why did I want to show you page tagging? Oh, no. I want to show you a report, but let's see if that opens for me. All right, so what is page tagging? So don't confuse page tagging with any sort of Google language around tagging. That's not what this is. Eloqua has been doing page tagging for since Eloqua started, I think, pretty much. But the concept is that tags are basically keywords that you can assign to a group of pages from your website. And so most of us will have sections on our website where there might be multiple pages. So if you think about the About Us page on your website, that may be one page, but it could potentially have other links going to other things. And so all of those subsequent pages fall under, if you look at the URL, it's going to be About Us. It might be About Us /CEO, About Us /Team Dynamics, and blah, 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 et cetera, as you go on, right? You might have Meet the Team sections, legal stuff, and then products and services. Again, so if we look at those URLs, they're pretty easy to map out. What we want to be able to do is, instead of you having to drop in individual URLs within Eloqua, we could actually drop in a page tag. So the universities are a great example. So if we look at a university and there's a whole section on the university about engineering, and there could potentially be 10 or 15 pages that talk about engineering, undergraduate, postgraduate, all that sort of stuff. What we could do is actually group all of those URLs together, give them a common tag called engineering. And that way, in future, if you're doing campaigns that are targeting engineering and you're wanting to include the behavior across the website of known contacts on any of the engineering pages, then you can simply bring in one page tag into your segment as you're building that audience. The reason we discuss this now during lead scoring is it does become really helpful because all of that work and effort that you do there can also be used in your lead score model. So you can reference page tags under engagement within your lead score model, which again becomes really helpful because you've got people who may be very engaged on the website, but not so engaged with your email assets or vice versa. And so we don't want to miss those people in the context of the lead score model. The nice thing about page tagging, it can be used in segments. You can use it in lead score model, and you can also use it in shared filters as well. All right. So what I've done here is I've literally downloaded a website overview report for Marketing Cube. I've added in this one, column B. But what I want to point out to you is there are a few ways you can do this. Okay, so you can see here, for instance, the blogs, we use WordPress for our website. So the blog construct is pretty simple. It's the URL / the year, the month, and then the name of the blog. So that one's pretty easy. I can go in here, apply a filter, sort it alphabetically, and Shazam, I've kind of got them all in sequence, which then means I can go through and assign a tag. And so in this case, I'm assigning a tag being the word blog. Okay. Now, when you look up here, you're like, well, what the heck is HVWC? That's a really valid question. So this one pops up in the lead scoring process, because what we're trying to do here is understand high-value web content. And you may do it in tiers, maybe 1, 2, and 3. So what constitutes high-value web content? High-value web content could be those pages that contain high-value content, right? So if it's a white paper that if people download that particular white paper, there's usually good discussions that come after that. People are receptive. It's a white paper that talks to a key aspect of what you do, that is a differentiator with what you do within the marketplace, etc. And so you would consider that high-value web content. Now, you can assign multiple tags to a single page. And I think I've got an example here. So, for instance, what I wanted to do here was potentially flag this as a blog so that, yep, I want to tag it as a blog. But I also wanted to identify any of the different pieces of content that we have that talk to nurture campaigns. And so what I can do is go through, have a look at all these different things, and then I can just put a comma between them. The other thing that becomes really helpful is the reporting that Eloqua provides you with the website overview. So average pages per visit, return visit rates, all those things, filtering them through. And that might help you, may also help you uncover high-value web content. There may be pages getting a lot of attention that maybe you're not aware of. Not all pages that are high-value web content necessarily have to have a form on them, but they could just potentially be really good information. And then if there are a lot of people looking at those pages, then maybe it's worthwhile considering ranking it just that little bit higher in the process. All right, so what I wanted to do is show you here where you would use it on the campaign canvas, for example. So many of you may have designed a canvas much like the one you see in front of you right now, where you're using the visited website construct. So the visited website is really helpful. It's really helpful from a more top of funnel type of communication campaign, where what they look at on the website is kind of not key at this particular point in the campaign. The fact that they're at the website, the fact that they've received the email, potentially click through from that email to get to the website is a good thing. They're starting to understand what it is that you do. But in the course of your campaign, and as that campaign develops, you'll get to a point where you now want to make specific calls to action within your emails to take people to specific page or set of pages. This is where shared filters can come in. Now, you can either use the page tags that you've created, or you can create a shared filter that has a whole set of specific URLs. And maybe if there's 5 links within the email to direct people to 5 different things, well, the shared filter will contain those 5 URLs. So now instead of simply asking, well, did they sort of maybe kind of get to something on the website, which is what the earlier process is asking, what we're asking now is, did they visit any one of these 5 particular pages of the website based on your email and the relevant calls to action contained within them? It enables you to be a lot more targeted and a lot more specific in relation to what you're doing. So again, just to revisit, going back to that lead score model and looking at the engagement side of things, you may have noticed there on the left-hand side, visited page tags or page tag groups. So once you create your tags, you can actually put them into groups as well. So you can, take it up a level, take it down a level, whichever one is easiest. If we look at the segment area, again, on the right-hand side with all of the different filter criteria that you've got, you can look at page tags there. So it'll pop up like so. You've got a range of criteria that you can offer, and this is actually marketing cubes, page tags. So we have all of our URLs that constitute about us, all of our blog posts, customer success, anything to do with the user group, and then you'll see those high-value web content, tiers 1, 2, and 3 that we've got in there as well. So another way that you can use your page tags in segmentation. All right, so what I want to talk about here, which kind of is just a logical flow really of everything we've covered so far, is really that sales and marketing alignment exercise. It's not new. It should hopefully be something that's super relevant for all of us. But why do you as a marketer need to understand lead scoring personally? Well, I think there are a range of reasons why it's super helpful for you to be able to get in your head exactly what lead scoring is. But typically in most organizations, anything that you can do that is tied to a revenue related activity makes you more valuable to the organization as a whole. So lead scoring can help you foster better relations between marketing and sales. And the key reason there, I think, is because it does allow you to come together collaboratively to agree together what constitutes a marketing qualified lead. Don't forget to also have that conversation around a sales accepted or sales rejected lead. That's our strategic services team can help you have that broader discussion as well, because not every single marketing qualified lead that you obviously send through to the sales team is going to be accepted. Some will still be rejected. So what happens next? What do we do with those? All that effort and time and money that has been spent to get that person to that point where they're then sent through as a marketing qualified lead. If the sales team reject them, do we just cast them aside? Well, the answer is no. But if we really want to explore that in more detail, please reach out. We can have a chat on that one. Lead scoring helps the sales team really focus in. I like to look at it from the scenario of, in the old days, you might have seen the sales team getting out their A to K and L to Z phone books. And if you don't know what that is, you need to go and Google it. But get out their A to K and their L to Z phone books and start from A and start picking up the phone and making phone calls. It's insanity, right? If your surname started with Z, you'd never hear from a salesperson. What lead scoring enables you to do is take all of that information and bring to the surface the people who, through their profile and through their engagement, are indicative of someone who is wanting to buy. And so that's when you achieve your marketing qualified lead scenario. And again, it's an objective measure. It is one that you built together, but you then leave it up to Eloqua to assign that score based on the information and the parameters that you've built within your lead score model. So I just want to give you a visual to kind of try and help you. If you had to have a quick discussion with someone today after this webinar about, well, what is lead scoring? This visual may help you have that discussion. So at the very bottom, hence the blue that you can see at the bottom of that arrow is nice and cool. So the person's not really a fit for what it is that you do versus someone who potentially is a best fit for what you do. On the other side, though, there could be no interest at all. They're not displaying any interest in what you're doing, right through to a person who is very actively interested, and through their behavior, you're able to see that. So on the left-hand side, what we're looking at is who the person is. This is very much the profile side of things. Are they a director of finance? Are they in the banking industry? Does their organization have revenue in excess of $100 million, for example? What have they done? So this is how we determine the level of interest in what it is that you do. So it's web visits, it's the form submissions, it's the email click-throughs, and there's that bigger list that I presented to you earlier as well. So our goal is to move them from a not a fit and no interest to best fit and active interest. Now, of course, some are going to fall away. That's fine. We understand that. But what we're trying to do is to really provide campaigns that will address people with specific content that will help bring them to the surface and hence become that marketing qualified lead that we're looking for. So a hot lead could be another way to look at it. So key points for you to understand as a marketer from a lead scoring point of view. So the first thing is, regardless of how many models you build within Eloqua, every single contact is scored. So if you build a lead score model and your focus in that lead score model is prospective customers, customers will still be scored. Okay. So what we then need to do is go over to a segment and we start to filter out and use the lead score model to help us make sure that we're not communicating with the wrong audience, for instance. Every single contact is scored within the database. Now, when does the score happen? So you create emphasis on profile and engagement by weighting them from 5 to 100%. So if we go back to Dragos's question at the very beginning of today's webinar, he said, I've got a campaign. How can I create a lead score model for one campaign? Okay, so what we can do is, under the engagement side of things, be very specific with a particular campaign and all of the email assets within a particular folder, for example. And then anything else, we score that at 100% potentially, and everything else is scored at 5%, which is the least amount you can do. You may say to me, well, why not 0, Derek? That's because there is no 0. 5% is the least amount that we can assign. Anything that is of least value to you should be down at 5% to really help create the difference and the separation between the two. So active contacts are scored every hour within the platform, and the entire database is scored every 24 hours. Now you can create that. Yeah, that was, I actually had that point in there before I got Dragos's email, which was only this morning, by the way. He threw that, I got that this morning, through that submit a question form that I said to you earlier. So we do read them and we do try to answer them. So please make sure you get a question in. Yeah, so you can create that campaign-specific lead score model should you want to. Now, one thing that we do at Marketing Cube, it was actually one of the models I think I showed you earlier, was we actually also create a customer engagement model. And so for us, engaging with our customers through things like the user group and other types of comms and subscriptions is really important. With a lot of information we want to share to help you perform and to be the best that you can be in relation to the platform and what you're trying to achieve and align with your objectives. So it's really important from our point of view that we not only have a lead score model in a very traditional sense of the word lead score model, but we also have, and we like to use the term, a customer engagement score using the same construct. There is no, you won't go to menus and find customer engagement scores. That's not how it works. We use the lead score model, but we just skew it in such a way that it's focused more heavily on those who in our platform are identified as customers. Okay, I want to show you a quick tip. This is just something that I've used quite a bit, and has also been, we use this one quite a bit in lead score workshops. So what can often happen is that, someone within the team, let's just say the sales team, are super keen on a particular piece of information from a profile point of view. They're absolutely committed to the feeling that we must understand X question, for example. Okay. So what you want to be able to do is actually go and have a look and understand how well or how much data you've got that actually will help answer that question. Now, what I'm showing you is this is the new 23C interface too, by the way. So the settings area of Eloqua has been updated. This is what it looks like right now. So you would go to Fields and Views. From Fields and Views, I'm going to access, the contact field in our instance of Marketing Cube called Country. Now, there's an area here where you can access field population details. This exact same information is if you're still using the previous, or the non-Redwood version of Eloqua, that's fine. You can still access it. It's exactly the same. And in fact, when it opens, you'll see it's still the old portion of Eloqua. But what I wanted to show you here was So let's say we're having a lead score discussion at Marketing Cube, and our sales team member says it's super critical that we understand which country the person is in. Well, in this example, with great confidence as the marketing director, I can say, you know what, guys, we have really good quality data when it comes to the contact field and understanding which country the person is in. And in fact, you can see in our entire database, there is only 528 contacts that we don't know which country they're in. You will know, filling in our forms, it probably pre-populates for you now, mostly in most cases. You never have to tell us, just tell us once, that's fine. Eloqua remembers these things. But yeah, it just, now I know, I know for a fact too, that probably nearly 450 of those 528 are all Marketing Cube test email accounts. So it kind of narrows that down even further. But that's just one example. And so you can come here and look at any field within your platform and get an understanding of how much data you've actually got. So if the sales team say to you, oh, it's really important that we understand industry, for example, let's have a look. Okay, well, I think you would agree that, you know, we have some pretty good quality data there in relation to contacts that have shared or disclosed their industry. There's still 2,698. So what I would do there is I then go over to segments, create a segment, and say, Eloqua, give me all contacts where the industry field is blank. Have a closer look. Have a look in there. You can probably export that out to Excel, have a really good look at it. Based on some company names, you could probably manually update some of those industry fields and then put that information back into Eloqua and have it flow into the CRM, which would be helpful. Or maybe as you start to look at campaigns over the next quarter, you look at weaving in that question into your forms as to which industry the person is in. So that's another way you can start to sort of populate. But all of this has to be done really in the context of a strategy, an overarching strategy. At Marketing Cube, in relation to country, you know, we made that decision probably 8-9 years ago that it was really critical for us to understand where the person was geographically, because as our business began to grow and expand, we realized that you know, inviting someone who may be in the United States or the UK or South Africa to a after dinner drinks event on George Street just made us look like fools. So we had to start asking that question so that we could figure out exactly how we could really tailor our comms. That's just one way, but that all came from an underlying discussion around strategy. And of course, again, feel free to reach out to us, please. We'd love to have that discussion with you as to how that all ties in together. And the lead score often is an easy flow on from that particular discussion. All right, we're almost done. Release 23C. So for those of you who are on pods 1, 2, or 7, you're done. Okay, you're live on 23C. For those on pods 3, 4, 6, and 8, you will happen around the 17th or 18th of August this year. Sorry, this month. this month. Generally speaking, for any of the admins that are on the call today, if you're running Salesforce CRM or Oracle Sales CRM, enhancements for those, which are the apps that connect Eloqua to those two platforms, they will arrive for everybody on the 18th of August. So just an FYI for you on that one. So Redwood design is the big thing that we're seeing. There is a really cool feature that I'm going to show you next that I've been asking for a long time that I'm super excited to show you. Release 23C is rolling out, and with that, with Redwood, we have 4 new areas within Eloqua that you'll see those changes. I just showed you one, which is the settings area within the platform. If you're not sure how to get access to Redwood, I'm going to show you that in just a moment, but you need to log a service request with Oracle to request that the controlled availability of Redwood be activated on your instance of Eloqua. The other key thing is you need to tell them, do you want just these 5 or so people to have access to Redwood, or should all of your users have access to Redwood? Our general consensus is that, you know what, just give everybody access, because you can turn it off if you need to, but the ability to turn it on and off is kind of cool. So this is what you see today when you log into Eloqua. Once you've had that service request submitted, what you will now see down the left-hand side from the slide out menu, this is the only location you can access it, from the slide out menu on the left-hand side, is a little checkbox. And so once you check that box, Shazam, things change, and this is Redwood. It should be a fairly seamless switch, I think, for most people. It's not like it's a night and day exercise. The information on the screen is actually just more versus things being taken away. So the other things that changed this month was the Eloqua user group, email group setup page has changed. I've just got an example there of an email group on screen. I just showed you the settings area, for example. So again, slightly different navigation there, kind of simplified view, which is kind of nice. If you're looking at fields within the platform, so this is the fields area. Again, you've still got your views and track fields and so on and so forth, but all of your field information is there. This is your edit button, by the way, up here in the top right-hand corner. So if you feel like you're missing something, you can't find it, chances are it's going to be in those three little dots on the screen. This is the one that I've been asking for a while that I'm super pumped that is actually now available for everybody. And that is the ability to expire and redirect a landing page. Now you might think, well, hang on a minute, I've been able to. Yes, you can. You can redirect a web page today. But you have to remember to go back into Eloqua and put in a redirection URL. And I was using my calendar to provide me with a reminder to go back into Eloqua in order to do that. Not the most ideal scenario, but it was a scenario that I followed. So how do we do it now? Okay, so everybody has access to this. Well, once you, sorry, I should confirm, once you had release 23C applied to your instance of Eloqua, it's available. This is actually, this is the landing page that you registered for today's session. So I'm just going to pull in a little bit so you can see it a bit easier. So on the left-hand side there, under advanced settings, you've got the redirect settings. That's always been there. That's not changing. That will behave purely as is. What we're looking at, and this is the new part, is page expiry redirect. So there's a toggle for you to turn it on if you need to. You nominate the time and the date that it expires. You also nominate the time zone. So for those of you who are working in multiple time zones with different assets in different locations, for example, that can be quite helpful. Otherwise, it will default to your local time zone. And then you pop in the URL of wherever you want them to go. So it could be an Eloqua landing page. It could be anywhere, but that's it. And so now that's done. I'm super excited because it now means I don't have to worry. When I create the user group each month with that registration page for the webinar, I can put in the expiry dates and we're done and dusted. So fantastic. Hopefully that's helpful for you as well. Last month, we talked about some of these generally available optional features. There are a range of them. We covered a few of them on the blog post for the July user group. So please go back to the July blog post and you'll find more information there on some of those. So these are additional features that are available. You just simply need to ask for them to be turned on. That's it. That brings us to an end of our three-part series. What we'd love to hear from you is what you'd like to hear about next, hence the emphasis on asking questions. So we'll get some information out to you shortly, which will talk a little bit more about what we're thinking for the last 3 months of the year, but we would love for you to shape that content. So even just pick up and just send me an email. You don't have to fill in a form. That's okay. Just send me an email. Just put in the subject line, I have an idea or something like that. And that'll grab my attention and we'll get some information out to you in the coming weeks for the last 3 months. So what do we know? August, so September, October, November will be our last 3 user group webinars for this year. And we'll see you again at the beginning of next year. I can't believe we're talking next year already, but anyway. So thank you so much for joining us. If you do have any questions, I'm happy to stay on the line here for a moment. Or if there's anything in chat, but otherwise, thank you so much for joining us and we look forward to seeing you next month.